Ed Milet really summed it up well in an interview I heard him with Rachel Hollis. And he says that somebody once told him the definition of hell. And it's that on his last day on this earth, the person who he became will meet the person he could have become. And those two people are complete strangers. But somebody also once told him the definition of heaven. And it's that on his last day on this earth, the person who he became will meet the person he could have become. And those two people are identical twins. So with that phrase, I try to live according to that definition of heaven every single day and always work to bridge the gap between the person who I currently am and the person I know who I can become.
You are now tuning in to the Going North podcast with your host, best-selling author, professional speaker, and member of the John Maxwell team, Dominic Dom Brightman. And every Monday and Thursday, we're going to hear the voice of a different author sharing their gifts, stories, and expertise to help you charge forward in life. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, where super special, awesome humans from around the globe come together for conversations, puns, and self-promotion. Today's no different because we got a super special, awesome author in his house today, y'all. Today's author, my goodness, another TEDx speaker, my goodness, I lost count after 10. My man has been doing big things. He's a TEDx speaker, a #1 best-selling author, as well as a 2-time startup founder. And the funny part about it is this is all before the age of 25. So my man hasn't even gotten to George Washington quarter status yet, and he's already making waves. And not only that, he has an upcoming book called The Journey to Cloud 9, which provides a new approach to the personal development world by using fictional storytelling to reveal some of life's most meaningful principles. And this wonderful human right here has been asking hundreds of people around the world how they live their lives on Cloud 9. And my man can't wait to share all of this with you today. So you probably know who I'm talking about today. It's the one, the only JG himself, Mr. Jordan Gross. How are you today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great, Dom. Thank you so much for that incredibly kind introduction. You're going to have to send that to me because it was a good one. But anyway, thank you so much for that. And it's cool we're talking today because I was actually just accepted to give my second TED Talk in March of 2020. So,
woohoo! Yeah! Yes!
Morning, yeah.
My man's just doubling it up. 2 best-selling books, 2 TEDx talks, 2 companies. So I guess 2 kids now in the future then?
Hey, who knows? Who knows? Like you said, only 25, so no kids yet.
There you go. Protect the wallet.
I gotcha. Yeah, exactly. Got to focus on getting myself to where I want to be before I can take full responsibility for others.
There you go, man. But my man's been taking uber responsibility on himself, man. It takes ultra discipline to get where you are, man. So as with all introductions, I'm pretty sure you know they're not allowed to be 99 years long. So mind filling in some cavities where I missed some things in the introduction?
Yeah, of course. So I'll try to keep it pretty short so we can just dive into some other topics. But for a long time, I was a guy who was just going through the motions. I didn't really think the way that I do now, in that I was following a life of meaning and purpose and helping others and adding value. I got good grades and I was an athlete in high school, so I went to a good college. And then when I was in college, I continued to get good grades and get good internships. And I thought that the definition of success that I wanted was to just make a lot of money and have a nice big house, and that would be it. But pretty quickly I realized that wasn't for me. And I interned in finance and consulting. And I said, okay, like, how do I figure out what I actually want to do? So I started listening to personal development. I started listening to audiobooks and reading self-help books. And I ultimately figured out this word passion, right? Follow something that you're passionate about. And I did a 1-year master's program in management studies where I sort of dipped my toes into creating my own startup companies, creating a charity organization, And I'm really getting involved in the food and restaurant world. I thought that was going to be my passion. That was the answer for how I can make a living off of something that I loved. So I took this big fancy job in that world. And again, pretty quickly, I realized that it actually wasn't for me. It wasn't as innovative and creative as I thought. It was actually very corporate, very traditional, the opposite of what I wanted. So 4 months into that, I quit and I said, what's next? And I had been writing down reflections in a Word document of all the self-help that I was listening to and reading for the last year and a half. And I turned that into my first book, Getting Comfy, Your Morning Guide to Daily Happiness. And then ever since then, it's been figuring it out as I go. How can I create a business around this? How can I continue to share this message through content, through writing, through speaking, through coaching? And just last year, I created a new concept called Journey to Cloud 9. And as you saw in the prologue, Dom, that came from a chance encounter in an Uber driver. So I love how you used the word Uber before, because Uber was big in the creation of all of this. So now here we are with the book coming out, with talks coming up, with coaching going on, all with the overall mission of allowing other people to sort of blaze their own trails on this journey to Cloud 9, where they live the lives that they want to live as opposed to lives that anybody else can tell them or try to influence them in living. So I hope that wasn't too long, but that's basically how we got here.
Don't worry, man. It was long as a prairie dog, man. Perfect length, man. Long as a prairie dog. But yeah, man, that is amazing. It's kind of awesome that you had the sports background and then you ended up making a change in trajectory and then just getting into the personal development and the coaching and just asking folks questions like how they get to their cloud nine. And it, it's kind of amazing. Like you're just going through life and then you just make this change and just go into the personal development absorption phase and just absorbing all of it.
Yeah, it's full immersion. So this isn't a spoiler, but basically I separate the book into different clouds. Like each cloud is a different chapter, is a different momentous occasion in the character's life, and it's a different principle, the life lessons that I've learned in interviewing hundreds of people. And the last cloud, Cloud 9, is actually called resurgence. Because when you're on Cloud 9 or on your own journey to Cloud 9, it's this realization that you can do anything that you want to do, and you can create a whole new Dom or a whole new Jordan and go about something totally different than what you've been doing in your life prior to that point. So my resurgence, just like you said, was this full immersion into the personal development world, which was totally different than anything that I had been doing in the past. With that being said, I still use a lot of the skills and my greatest assets in everything that I'm doing now, my positivity, my relationship building, my communication skills. But yeah, it's a totally different industry, but I'm still using a lot of the same core elements of who I am, knowing who I am, having that self-awareness to say, okay, let me use my greatest strengths to ultimately set myself up for success and set others up for success too.
There you go, man. It's kind of one of the best things about personal development when you actually take it seriously is that it stays with you and it evolves.
Yeah, that's right. That's so true. Something for me too that I've really been trying to promote lately is that personal development, when you start out, just like I did, is amazing to just read the books, listen to the podcast, and implement into your life, right? Especially if you don't really know what direction to go. And it's awesome to just make yourself a human guinea pig and put it to the test, right? But now, once you sort of develop yourself a little bit, you have this sense of okay, here are the things that I need to be doing in order to sustain long-term growth, long-term self-improvement. I actually believe that you have to stop taking the traditional route, stop taking the advice straight on, and actually take advice or listen to advice, but then ultimately interpret the advice for yourself. And that's through personal development, through creative storytelling, and through fiction. So now I'm at a point where I'm pretty much only reading fiction and listening to stories so that I have more of an emotional connection to the advice that I'm being given. And that allows me to interpret for myself what I want to implement into my life based on the stories that I'm reading or being told. And I think for others, that's so important and so advantageous as well, so that like I said, we're not basing our decisions off of what somebody who doesn't even know who we are is just telling us to do. Rather, we're taking the advice and saying, hey, this is applicable in my life in this, and this way, and then acting accordingly.
That's a real interesting spin right there. It's like, once again, just changing, once again, is like going to the whole fiction and storytelling thing. Because a lot
Yeah.
of folks sometimes they may not even read like a fiction book, but a lot of the best-selling books, like kind of like The Alchemist, like that's one of the best-selling fiction books of all time. And heck, even books like The 1 Minute Manager and The Greatest Salesman Ever Lived, like a
Yeah,
lot of those are story based.
yep, exactly. And it does a couple of things, right? I'd say number one, there's a captivation to it, right? The story is just making you want to read more and more and more. And the life lessons happen to be sprinkled throughout, even though the reader may not necessarily realize at first. Number two is the emotional appeal, like I said. You get to really put yourself in the shoes of the characters and see, okay, I want to live this character's life, but oh, I don't want to be doing what that character's doing, right? And then number three is that fiction, not only just for the consumer, but also for the creator, it sort of provides a release. It provides an escape from the mundane norm, the realities, right? It's a different way of thinking. So yeah, I'd say for those three reasons, it's super important to definitely indulge upon a book like The Alchemist, or Go Giver is one of my favorites, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and then coming soon, The Journey to Cloud Nine.
That's right. So any plans on playing the Temptations Cloud 9 song when the book is finally released?
Yeah. I've had so many crazy coincidences and people telling me different their Cloud Nine stories, but also like sending me pictures of albums that are named Cloud Nine, and like boats that they've seen called Cloud Nine, and stores called Cloud Nine, and songs and things like that. Yeah, there's going to be a whole big Cloud Nine theme around the release.
Sweet. A Cloud 9 party. Everybody dresses up as a cloud, baby.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Yeah, there is going to be a Cloud Nine party. I didn't think about the dress code yet, but yeah.
There you go. Or just everybody has a cloud hat, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe just, I don't know, like a cloud sticker, and then I don't know. We'll see.
There you go. Cloud the world with positivity, baby. That's right.
That's right.
But yeah, man, it's definitely great though, man, because it's much needed in today's society. It's like, hey, man, we do really need another book, but yes, we kind of do, because there's folks that may not be reached with traditional books that may be out there. They may be wanting to hear the Jordan Gross version of
Sure.
how they can get to a certain point. So, out of all of your conversations with others, with asking them how they have their Cloud Nine moment, what's probably been the most interesting one so far off the top here that you remember?
Oh, great question. Top of my head, the Cloud Nine moment that I sort of go to as one that's just different than most, because like I said, I picked up on a lot of key themes, and I've done hundreds and hundreds of these, and the principles are outlined in the book. But one that deviates a little bit, and I'm always trying to deviate, think a little bit differently, share something that might be a little bit different, is a guy named Charlie Seraphin. He was living the corporate life for a long time, and he made a whole bunch of money, and he had what he considered success in his life, and really nice, life that he was able to create for his wife and his kids. But he had this realization. Cloud 8 is actually a realization. He had his Cloud 8 moment where he said, what am I doing all this for? How is it impacting me? How am I developing personally throughout my life? And he went out on an exploration. And I think it was in Utah. He went to live with some monks for a couple of months. And he's living in the monastery with the monks. He was practicing different forms of meditation, because the traditional transcendental meditation was a little bit challenging for somebody with so many thoughts going through his mind. So he was outside one time, and he said that he saw these baby hummingbirds, and he would help them every morning, like with something. He would feed the baby hummingbirds or something. And after a little while, they grew up, and he wouldn't see the hummingbirds anymore. And he's outside meditating one morning, a couple weeks later, and these hummingbirds start racing toward his head. and he was pretty calm. He was in a state of calm at the time, so he wasn't panicking or anything. And all of a sudden, right as they're about to bump into him, they sort of just flew around his head,
Hmm.
almost as if to say, "We know who you are, and thank you so much for what you've done for us." And he said that it was in that moment that he had this cloud nine experience that he'd never felt before, because not only was he experiencing something that most others don't, but also it was because it came from a place of service, a place of gratitude for the creatures that he was able to help, right? So it was almost like this true appreciation for life, for the connection between different living organisms. So that's a really different one that was sort of just like all a part of his journey coming together in that moment. He just felt like nothing he'd ever felt before.
Dude, I was expecting maybe like if they finally got the girl or the guy that they've just been dodging him for months, or maybe they got a mysterious pay boost out of nowhere that they feel like they didn't deserve. But that's
Yeah.
definitely out of nowhere in a good way.
Of course. You get those too for sure. And like I said, they're definitely in the book, you know, your moments of marriage or when you had a child or big career accomplishments. Those definitely pop up. But like I said, I always try to think a little bit differently and try to push others to think a little bit differently in the way that they do things as well. So I thought that would be a cool moment to spread.
There you go. I'm glad you decided to share that butter with the rest of us bread right here. That's right. Just spread it.
Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh.
And that's just the power of meditation too. And it's a good thing that they actually went out with monks to get the real authentic vibe too. Like that
Yeah.
that just adds an extra layer to it.
Yeah, definitely. And again, that's very much how I, you know, something that I would support too is when you don't know what your life is supposed to be like, when you don't really understand your purpose, you need to take action because action brings clarity. And he said, okay, I need to do something. So let me go explore this curiosity of living with these monks. And then once you explore your curiosities, you're able to get one step closer to what that ultimate purpose really is.
That's right. I love what you said there. Action brings clarity because it's so darn
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, my buddy Anthony Moore told me that once, and I always use that phrase. It really is so true.
Yeah, man, because that's probably like a lot of the fogginess is going around today is because folks are probably taking action on the wrong things or taking no action at all.
Mm, yeah, I mean, any action is better than complacency, right? Because you know, as cliche as it is, do you could be going down the right path, and if you're going down the wrong path with that action, then hey, you're one step closer to figuring out what the right path is.
That's right, because you could end up on the left path. That's right, with all the corn. So that's beautiful indeed. So, any plans to maybe have that as a part of your life, maybe down the road, like meditating with monks, or maybe going to another country, or just doing something like out of the norm that may bring you closer to diving deeper into yourself?
Yeah, I'd never rule it out. I'm a very go with the flow, see what happens kind of person. I'm a big yes man as well. So if the opportunity presents itself and I'm in the right place emotionally and spiritually and financially, maybe I'll check it out. I don't know. I wouldn't say no.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Never say never.
Exactly. Yeah, everything is situational.
Yes, indeed. So, this is great because you have this nonfiction book about getting comfy. And now it's a
Yeah.
switch to the fictional story. So, what was probably the biggest challenge with making that switch?
Biggest challenge. Yeah, well the biggest challenge was never having written in this style before. I was writing pretty much straight up personal development pieces for about a year before I made the transition. So what I actually did was I read a book called Dark Matter. And Dark Matter is actually this science it's a dark science fiction book about parallel universes and quantum theory and things like that. And I really liked the author's style. So I read it again. I read it a couple of times, and I just kind of took notes and picked up on what he was doing to really lure readers in and also present some key themes about life throughout. And yeah, I just kind of based my writing off of Blake Crouch's writing. I believe that's who wrote it. And, Mitch Albom is my favorite author out there. He wrote Tuesdays with Morrie and The Five People You Meet in Heaven. So I went back and I looked at the style of those two books. And I just basically, like I said before, with how I view any advice now, I was trying to take what the greats were doing, and then give it my own personal spin. I think that's truly how we become the most representative of our true selves and live our Cloud9 lives. It's by understanding other people, listening to other people, even sometimes emulating other people, but ultimately having our own takes on these things so that they are our own.
Solid right there. Dark matter. All right.
Yeah, good.
Check that one out.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, speaking of dark matter, I guess my man's a fan of light matter with all the clouds and Cloud
Yeah,
9.
there's a big cloud theme. There's planes and pilots and co-pilots and being on autopilot, navigating through the clouds, sort of big sky theme. Yeah, it's just one big metaphor for our journeys.
Yes, indeed. And speaking of journeys, you had this awesome journey where you did 90 podcasts in 90 days, man.
Yeah,
Like, dude, man. So, being on all those podcasts, is there a
yeah.
question that you wish more podcast hosts would ask you, or is there a question that you haven't been asked yet that you would love to be asked?
That's a good one. I'll start there. That's a really nice question to hear. I've never been asked that before, and it's a good one. I would say the one thing that stands out about my podcast experience and doing all of those interviews in such a condensed period of time is that for me, I always remembered things that were different, right? Things that really stood out, like opportunities where I got to ask questions back, or opportunities where we had a random question that ultimately meant like a lot more than we thought it was going to mean. So just creative ways to ask the same question, right? So instead of saying, "Oh, Jordan, tell me about your childhood," a question that would definitely stand out in my mind would be like, tell us a story about, or sorry, like relate your childhood to a cartoon character and why. Things that just made me think a little bit differently. Those were the ones that stood out.
Nice. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But yeah, with the 90 podcasts in 90 days, it was the main theme there was it's a representation of how I view goal setting these tremendous and quantifiable goals, and then ultimately doing everything within my power to go and accomplish them, right? Because I'm actually a personal trainer as well. In the mornings I do a little bit of personal training, and we have New Year's coming up, right? So for New Year's resolutions, people always want to lose weight, and that's the worst New Year's resolution you could set. It's that I want to lose weight. So if you equate this to my podcast journey, it's like I want to be on podcasts. Well, that's a terrible goal. The goal for the person who says I want to lose weight, that's like the dream. The dream is to lose weight. The goals have to be the steps, the micro steps that you take in order to lose that weight, right? So it's not, I'm going to lose all this weight, but rather it's what's going to allow you to become the person who loses all that weight. What's going to allow me to become the person who goes on a lot of podcasts? Well, it's going to be somebody who reaches out to 10 podcast hosts a day. It's going to be somebody who crafts a beautiful message to each podcast host individually and looks up the shows and does research and tries to add value to their listeners. And for the person who's losing weight, it's going to be a person who gets into the gym 5 days a week for 30 minutes a day for 5 weeks straight. And after that 5 weeks, you will become the person who loses the weight, which is the ultimate goal. Just like I became the person who appeared on a lot of podcasts by setting this goal of doing 90 podcasts in 90 days.
That's right, man. That's what
Yeah.
I'm talking about, indeed. Because some say set over 50 podcasts a year, and it's like my man did it in 90 days. Like, all right, my man's putting steroids into the personal development, baby. He's putting himself out there, baby.
I love that. That's great because it's funny. Like I set these big goals and I have a lot of drive and ambition and really lofty expectations for myself. But, I don't take myself too seriously. With that being said, I listened to Kevin Hart once. He is always considered the hardest working man in entertainment, right? So what I want to be known as is the hardest working man in personal development. And it's sort of like I'm combining different people in the personal development world. So it's like I've got the David Goggins mindset and drive with like the Hal Elrod morning routine and add value to other people with like the Dale Carnegie, how I treat other people, how to win friends and influence people. So yeah, I'm trying to create the best of people that I truly believe in and then implementing them into my own life.
There you go, baby. That's right. The ultimate fusion, baby. That's right.
Exactly. Fusing them all.
That's right. The hybrid, baby. That's right. Maybe a Jordan Growth certification program down the road.
Who knows? Maybe. I don't know.
Woo!
I don't want anyone to be like me. I want them to be like themselves. So that's my reluctance there.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Yeah,
That's right. Everybody's born original, stay original. Don't die a copycat.
you got it. You got it.
That's right. That's the meow that you don't want in your life right there.
Exactly.
Well, with all this magical experience, what will probably be your advice to those who may be halfway at the halfway point with their goals and they're shooting for the dreams, but they may have forgotten their why or just lost the steam? Like, what advice would you give to them? Because it sounds like you're keeping the fuel in your tank.
Yeah. So the beginning of the book, the epigraph, it's called the opening quote, is my life methodology. And it's something I've heard before, but Ed Milet really summed it up well in an interview I heard him with Rachel Hollis. And he says that somebody once told him the definition of hell. And it's that on his last day on this earth, the person who he became will meet the person he could have become. And those two people are complete strangers. But somebody also once told him the definition of heaven. And it's that on his last day on this earth, the person who he became will meet the person he could have become. And those two people are identical twins. So, with that phrase, I try to live according to that definition of heaven every single day and always work to bridge the gap between the person who I currently am and the person I know who I can become. So, every single decision I make, choice I have, every single time I wake up in the morning, I just think, am I truly living according to who I know I can become? And I live accordingly.
Ah, beautiful right there. Beautiful right there. When I read it, I thought I got it, but after hearing you say it, it's like, all right, now it really makes sense. My
Yeah,
man's going for heaven, baby.
yeah,
That's right.
exactly, exactly.
Heck yeah, man. That's right. Going through with no regrets, indeed. No regrets.
Yeah, it's being more afraid to look back and say, what if I would have done this, than it is to actually make the decision to go ahead and do it and figure it out as you go.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Make the parachute on your way down. That's right.
Exactly.
Yes, indeed. Well, as with all magical adjustments, if you're to wake up tomorrow and you were 18 again in the current
Yeah.
year, what advice would you give to yourself with all of your amassed knowledge and experience?
So when I was 18, like I told you before, I was going through the motions. I didn't know any of this. And I think I took the advice of a lot of adults too seriously when I would hear, "Oh, you don't have to know what you're going to be when you grow up just yet." I took that in the way of thinking that I didn't need to even begin to think about what I wanted to be when I grew up. So the advice that I would give myself is, yes, you don't need to know exactly what you're going to be doing at the age of 18, but you do need to start at least exploring what it is that you want to do, what you want to become. Don't just go through the motions. Don't just do what other people are telling you to do. Have a sense of self-awareness, constantly self-reflect, and realize, are the things you're doing both personally and professionally making you happy, making you fulfilled? And I would just say to have more of a sense of awareness around those things.
Amen to that. Big ups for self-awareness and self-reflection.
Yep.
Yeah, man, because like, dude, if I had that tools years ago, oh my goodness, be
Yeah.
even more of a force.
Yeah, and it's because that allows you to be cognizant of your energy levels too, right? So when you're doing things that truly energize you, where you can get into that state of flow, you can have those cloud nine moments. You know that you need more of that in your everyday life.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. My man's coming in with the solid, baby. That's right, the solid engines, baby. That's right. That's right, indeed. So, for those who want to keep in magical contact with you and purchase 55 copies of your book, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you, my man?
Yeah, so I'll keep it really easy. Reaching out to me personally, I'll always answer on LinkedIn, and it's just Jordan Gross on LinkedIn. And then other than that, journeytocloud9.com is where you can get all the information about what's going on with the book, with the coaching, with the speaking, my own Cloud9 journey. And you could pick up some free chapters on there. I'll send Dom the link to that where you can start reading the book. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Big launch in February.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The month of love, baby. Get that Valentine's gift ready. Some good readings, Cloud9 reading.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Woohoo! That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, any parting words for the folks still listening, my friend?
I would definitely recommend thinking about that quote, living the life and bridging the gap between the person who you are and the person that you know you can be. And again, just it's funny, my last parting words or my last advice would be to not take my advice. It would be to listen to my advice and figure out for yourself if it's something that you want to um, truly do every single day. Because at the end, it is about you. It's about your interpretation, and it's about what you want to get out of these things. Don't try to live the life that I'm living. Live the life that you are supposed to be living.
Them stars are going off because you bringing the heat, baby. Thanks a bunch for your listening ears on the Going North podcast. I hope you really, really enjoyed that episode. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to share it with your friends and family, especially those who love podcasts and love listening to some inspiration and motivation.